Our next speaker is somebody I would call a very good friend of mine. Gil Lee is somebody who I met through my relationship with Nate Walkinshaw. Nate was my co-author on the most previous book, along with the big friendly giants. Sitting in the corner there, Martin Erickson. And through getting this book going, we got to spend a lot of time at Pluralsight and watch them work on something that's really, really hard, and that is 26 different product teams under one mission, moving towards ultimately what has become a public company just 2 weeks ago. And in that process, Gil, as Chief Product Officer, has driven the amazing level of trust and empathy and vision leadership through this organization to a point that it's very difficult to find equal comparisons. It's an amazing experience to go to Pluralsight and watch what they're doing, see how they've made this culture the strategy of the organization, and essentially blow this entire industry apart by just focusing on human beings as opposed to, the next technological advancement. So with that, I'd like you to welcome Gil Lee.
Morning. It's an honor to be here. Thanks to Richard and Emily and the team for inviting me to speak. There are 3 parts to my talk today, but let me talk to you about the topic. And the topic is about empathy, and more specifically about how empathy with your customers will lead to a better mission, vision, strategy, products, and alignment of your teams. Now, part 1 is about how it's important to understand the problem space your customers are in so you can focus on them rather than your products. Part 2 is about how you can create a framework for organizing problems for your teams to inspire them. So that's a key word, is inspiration. And part 3 is about how to capture problems organizationally. When we have 26 product teams and all these organizations around it, we really have to be organized in order to capture all of these problems. Now, let's go to part 1. Understand the problem space. 55% of Americans take prescription medicine on a regular basis. Now, we're all familiar with the prescription bottle. They're difficult to use. The information you need from them is difficult to read. But the biggest problem is that you can easily take the wrong medication with the prescription bottle. Now, a designer, Deborah Adler, solved this problem. Now, Deborah's idea for a new bottle design came because her grandmother, Helen, took her grandfather's prescription medicine by mistake. Now, his name was Herman. So, same initial, H. Adler, were printed on the bottle, and that's what led to the mistake. And so, let's take a look at this bottle. Now, on the top, or in the front of the bottle, the 3 most important things about this are there up on the top. You have the name of the person, the name of the medication and the dosage, and the instructions. Very easy to read, very easy to get. She also created this ring system that you can see on the left that allows you to use in order to actually create this, to reduce the problem of taking the wrong medication. It's a great, great solution, and I love just the design of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful design. And Target did acquire this design. It's called the ClearRx design. Now, I'm going to talk about another company, local actually. Anybody from PillPack in the audience? But maybe familiar? Okay, all right. Well, if you know someone there, I'd love to get to know them. But PillPack created this new solution where they focused on the entire patient experience. So we're about to play a video here. And what I'd like you to see in the video is how they actually created the company around this experience around the customer. So let's go ahead and play it. How awesome is that? You can see the difference between how someone improved on an existing solution versus looking at the entire customer experience and creating a new type of solution. So let's take a look at this design really quick. You can see there on the right really quickly is the date, right? November 14th. And it has a little icon that's kind of fun, but it tells you the time of the day, and then the medication. Now, I do have one quip about this, is that it doesn't have the name. So if I have 2 pill packs in the home, I hope they solve that problem. I just don't know from what I saw. What's also awesome about this pill pack is that they focus on the entire customer experience. And what they've done is that they've helped coordinate all the prescription from all the different doctors, created the medication sorting, and it's also safer, because 53% of Americans have more than one healthcare provider providing medication. And so you can see the drug effect problem there if you have one medication from one doctor and another and they're not talking. And so PillPack has solved this by talking to all of the doctors and actually creating one flow for the user. Now, this story shows the difference between improving on an existing product, like the prescription bottle, to the ClearRx design, and down over to the whole customer experience with PillPack. Now, let me tell you another story about how understanding the customer experience has helped Pluralsight create a new solution. So if you're not familiar with Pluralsight, we have the largest and deepest library of technology content and skills. Now, when Pluralsight started many years ago, the co-founders of Pluralsight started out teaching developers in classrooms for various companies around the world. Now, these developers started to ask for the videos of the instruction that they could review and share with their colleagues outside of the classroom. Now, it was a great product because it was this great in-classroom training that was 9 to 5. So in 2010, Pluralsight's solution took the classroom to the cloud. And what they created was this online course library that was available 24/7. And it's a great library. The users loved it, and the subscriptions took off. Now, when we joined Pluralsight in 2015, just to give you context, there was no product team. It was essentially the developers that were getting these orders, I would say, or product requirements from the salespeople, right, and the marketing people, and they were creating the great solution. Now, this is not to say they didn't create a great solution. They did, because they were a successful company. But we needed to create a whole new different solution that thought about the entire customer experience. So in 2015, when we joined and created the product team, we set out to understand what the solution is for these customers. Now, when we looked at the questions that we looked at the questions that we wanted to ask. What were the developers' needs? Do they know where they stand in their skills? How do they learn? Where do they learn? When do they learn? How do they solve problems? How do they apply learning? What do their teams look like? How do they work together? And then the last is, who are their leaders and what do these leaders need? How do these leaders lead their organizations and do they create their business objectives? And so, as you can see in the line of questioning here, it's really not just talking about the individual's needs, but really where they worked and where they lived. And this is kind of what we were setting out to do. So, just like the founders of Pluralsight, where they took the solution from the classroom to the cloud, we took the solution from a B2C solution into a B2B in the enterprise. Because we knew that most developers around the world work for a company. And so we had to create this solution that allowed us to think about all these questions and all these things that the developers were experiencing. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Yes, thank you. All right, so like I said, really the problem we were solving at this point in time was to transform the companies and scaling up teams and individuals. What insights can we get from these two stories? Number one, it's focusing on the customer, not the product. And additionally, I love this quote. I can't take credit for it, but Jeff Bezos says, is that focus on customer problems that are 10 to 20 years in the making, right? So think about that and see what problems you can solve that are worth solving that long. The other thing, too, is that understanding the problem outside of your product will open up new solutions. And so you can see it in the PillPack example and also what we're doing at Pluralsight today. By the way, just to plug, if there are developers out there, please check out Pluralsight. We just went public 2 weeks ago. It was an amazing experience. We went to the NASDAQ and had this big celebration. It's awesome. All right, let's go to part two. Part two, how do you create a framework for organizing your teams that will inspire them? Now, the outcome here for this section is, the outcome of creating a framework is not to control the work. It's really about inspiring the teams so they can point to a mission that everybody cares about. Now, I love this just really simple illustration of how we think about the framework at Pluralsight. What I'm about to share is really simple, by the way, but difficult to implement. But it's possible because I know we've lived this, we've built this whole framework for our teams. So it starts out with the mission. And the mission is really the why, your long-term focus, and the impact on the world you're making for your customers. Now, at Pluralsight, our mission is to democratize technology skills. We're doing this because we care about technology skills that people need to have in their hands. And we've got a lot of stories around there. I won't dive deep into it, but really, this is our mission. Everyone at Pluralsight understands why we exist and why we're there. Now, the next section around the framework is the vision and strategy. So, what is vision and strategy? The vision is really about the what, and it's 2 to 5 years of painting of the future. And the strategy are the steps that you need to take, and so you can know where to play and how to win. So let me just illustrate the difference between these two. When we're talking about vision, this is about what the future looks like for your products, your customers, your community, and your employees. Now, the strategy are the steps on how to win. So when you think about strategy, you think about geographies, go-to-market, value chain, customer, industry, and product. They're very different, but they're very much related. So at Pluralsight, this is how we visualize our strategy. It's an awesome, awesome view. I hope you guys will use it. This is what it looks like. We lovingly call it the spider graph. And so in the middle of this strategy is really the core. This is kind of where everything begins. And everything that comes out of it are all the steps. And so let me just illustrate this with one of the spines. when we're talking about geography, for example, the very first dot closest to the center is the US, because we know that we can win in the US, and this is the first step that we're going to take. The very last dot on that geography may be in China. So we know that in order to get to China, there's a lot of steps we need to take in order to get to China. And so when we at Pluralsight look at this strategy that is about 2 years right now is how we look at it, is that we map out which steps we care most about that we need to attack first. And so we have this strategy that's out to 2020. We use that, Vision 2020 and Strategy 2020, to kind of really help us see what we're about to do. Now, what's awesome about this is that it helps you kind of see where to go and where not to go. So it's helping you make decisions as an organization of what to do. All right, the third thing is really about execution. And so this is shown as objectives. And these are concrete goals that you can achieve within 3 to 12 months. And at Pluralsight, it's a quarterly cadence for us. All right? Now, what I'm going to show you, I don't want you to have any premonition or anything. We use OKRs. Now, before you have all these thoughts about OKRs, what I want to show really here is that OKRs is really about reaching your mission. It's just a tool for us, right? And at Pluralsight, we really care about the psychological safety for the teams when it comes to OKRs. We don't tie compensation to the completion of OKRs. We're very careful about that. We care more about the behaviors and the values that people put in their work than actually the completion. But the OKRs are really there to help you stretch. And so they're a fantastic tool, and we use them religiously. And as wanted to share this quote from my friend, Nate Walkingshaw. You know, remember, vision can still come from the top, but like I always said, teams own and lead the implementation of the ideas. As leaders, we need to be open how that could reshape our first impression of what the vision is. And so just to kind of wrap this up on part 2, the mission and vision and strategy should be clear. That is really, really important because it will help you decide yes or no, know where to play, and how to win. The other thing, too, that I just mentioned is really about leaders owning vision and strategy. We're comfortable with that at Pluralsight. The teams are entrusting us with the vision and strategy, and they do get to play and give input on the vision and strategy, but the ownership comes from the leaders. Now, once that is clear and set, we give full trust on the teams to actually execute and own the ideas. So that's really the dichotomy that we play at Pluralsight, where we actually point where we need to go, and the teams get to own how to get there. It's pretty awesome. Because we know that when you have autonomous and accountable teams, they perform better over the long term. And like I mentioned earlier, it's really about inspiring the teams, not controlling them. And so creating a framework that will really point to a mission, a vision, a strategy, and objectives is really the way for us to create this framework within an organization like Pluralsight. I hope you do it too. All right, let's go to part 3. Part 3 is about capturing problems organizationally. Now, at Pluralsight, we use a product development process called directed discovery that was also created by Nate Walkingshaw. You should look him up. It's really simple, but takes a lot of discipline to do. And this is what it looks like, and I'll go through it in a minute. You have personas, really, where the customers live. We always start with the customer. You have the voice of the customer. You have some prototype testing and some customer confirmation testing. And I'll just show you in pictures what this looks like. So whenever we start out a project, we do these voice of customers. And every room at Pluralsight is equipped with a TV and a camera. And as you can see here, you have the product manager, the designer, and the engineer. All of our customer interviews include at least those 3 disciplines. Sometimes we have machine learning and data scientists in there just to understand behavior, but we at least have these 3 disciplines. If we don't have a developer in the room, we actually cancel the meeting. It's that important to us. Now, we synthesize what we hear from these customer calls. And so repeated calls will show up patterns. And then what we do is we go back to the customer and do some prototype testing. And from that prototype testing, we understand a little bit more and have some confidence around the solution we're creating. And then we go ahead and build it as a team. And then as we release it from pre-alpha to beta, we go back again to the customer. So you can see this cycle of product development process where it's always a customer right in the middle of it as we're building it. And it's really divided into pre-launch. And so everything I talked about is about the pre-launch. Now, what happens after you launch it? How do you capture problems organizationally? We know that in an organization, at least at Pluralsight, we have support. And they live in the support group. We have customer success that are under sales. You have professional services that are doing pre-sales. And then we have in-app feedback and also NPS comments. It's a lot. It's really a lot of feedback. So what have we learned just from this experience? Number one, feedback can be valuable and distracting. And so everybody knows that. You can see all these feedback coming in, and it can be overwhelming. And it's really important to be clear with your vision, strategy, and your mission, because that's really what will point you to the right direction. And so think about those as filters as you create and capture feedback. Now, all of these too will lead to some blind spots. Now, what I really think about this is that understanding the assumptions you're making with your product will actually help you understand your biases. Because you can go in with this bias and thinking, oh, I'm creating a great solution. But you actually have to admit to yourself, okay, this is the assumption we're making with this product. Here's our bias. When we launch it, let's make sure we have that in mind and understand what we're doing. So when the blind spots do come, we're not filtering those out, which will actually make the problem even worse. So what's in it for you? I'm just going to recap us here. Number one, the problem space. Understanding where your customers are will actually help you lead to a new solution. And as you've seen, the pill pack and what we're doing at Pluralsight, it really has made a difference. Part two is really about creating a framework where your mission and your vision, strategy, and the objectives will really help align the teams together. And really, they care about that. And part three is really about now organizationally, we can't just be focused on what our teams are doing, but what the other teams are doing and what the other organizations are capturing. We still have this actually problem, and it's really, really difficult because how many hundreds and thousands of customer points do you get every single day? And so it's really important to have some kind of system in order to organize those feedback coming in. Now I have some extra credit. Really, the question I want to ask in the room is, what problems will you solve when you have AI and machine learning tools for your teams? And the reason why this is important, because it's actually hitting us as a product. We have to be so intent about where the machine learning algorithms go, because we care more about the human than actually trying to optimize the product. Does that make sense? Is that we focus so much on the customer that we don't want to create anything in terms of machine learning that will actually affect the customer if we're trying to point to some revenue number or whatever, right? And so this is extra credit for the room to think about as you're creating the products. And lastly, as I stated at the beginning, the outcome that I have for this talk is that if you have empathy with your customers, and if you really care and think about the customer at the very, very center of what you do every single day, everything will align from your mission to your vision, to your strategy, to your objectives. That's really your North Star. And I hope you've taken some good things from this talk, And thank you very much.